So welcome everybody. Today we are going to chat about how to heal your ancestral trauma and signs that you may need healing. So, as we know with trauma, maybe you may not know, but with healing trauma, the trauma that you experience may not just be because of you. It could be something that happened to you in the past. There's more and more research that is coming out now, talking about and sharing about epigenetics. Actually, yesterday I started finally reading my dad's book, Begin Again, and there's actually an entire section that he has all the research explaining how ancestral trauma is impacting people's health. And so this is not something that I'm making up. There's actually tons of research that's been done. It hasn't been brought to mainstream media yet. And so people are starting to talk about it, and so that's where I'm going to talk about it today. But this isn't just me saying like, okay, if you're going to heal trauma, you got to talk to the ancestors. And but if you look at indigenous cultures, if you look at any indigenous cultures, many of them, from wherever you're coming from, they have, there's very much about it's very much about what the ancestors teachings and healings and whatnot. So specifically in Canada here, I'm working with an indigenous community, and there's definitely a lot of teachings and very important things that we can learn from our ancestors, and you learn from your elders and whatnot. And many of us aren't really tuned into that yet because that's not necessarily part of your culture, but definitely something that you can consider if you're on this trauma healing journey. Cool. So what is ancestral trauma? It basically, like, I guess if I leave a little definition here, ancestral trauma refers to the traumatic experience of our ancestors that have been passed down through generations. So it actually gets passed down to you through DNA. Okay, ancestral trauma is an example that can include war. So have any of your family members, any of your grandfathers, grandmothers, all that type of stuff, did they fight in any kind of the wars? Genocides, enslavement, forced migration, or any kind of violence or oppression. So, so if you're female, yeah, we've all experienced it because our grandmothers, our great grandmothers were not allowed to vote if you're from North America, right? So depending on your culture, depending on your history, there is definitely something that our ancestors have, our family lines have experienced, right? So the effects of traumatic experiences can be passed on through generations, like I said, through the DNA. For example, children that grow up in homes that there's ongoing trauma. So it can happen to you specifically. So let's say you grow up in a home that you have alcoholic parents, or you have somebody that you had grandparents that live in the home and they passed away. So there's different, we're talking about big T and little t traumas. Okay. So it just depends on, what is trauma. So if you don't know, go back. I'll put a link up here, whatever, on YouTube for you to watch that video of what is trauma. And, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but essentially, understanding that your nervous system's been dysregulated somewhere along the way. And so these experiences get passed down, and they get stuck. Basically, it's like a loop. They get stuck in our nervous system loop in order to keep us safe. So it's just like we want to be able to start healing and getting you off that record player so that you can really feel some changes with you physically. Because what research is showing us is that when we get stuck in these loops and when we keep doing the same thing, like definition of insanity, we keep trying to heal, but it's like it's not working. Why does this pain keep showing up my body? Why do I still have digestive issues or migraines or joint pain? Or cancer is a big one. Cancer is, like, I don't know what it is. Like this is breast cancer awareness month. Lot of people, I don't know what happened, change of season or whatever, but personally, I know of 4 people who've been recently diagnosed with cancer, different ones, mind you, but it's still, there's cancer, again, in my dad's book, he explains it really well, not to like freak everybody out, but all of us have 37 trillion cancer cells living in our body. I was like, what? Trillion. That's a lot of zeros, right? All of us have them. The question is, do we have an environment in which it's going to thrive? That's really the question. And so trauma, what trauma does is that it can create it can create these cancer cells, and then one cancer cells leads to the other, right? And so that's where, why is cancer up on the rise? Well, according to my dad's book, trauma is a piece of the puzzle that we need to look at, right? And so that's where, like, it wasn't in my family history. Like, my great grandparents never had it, or my grandparents never did, right? But the idea is that because it's the DNA gets passed on, it takes time for cancer to grow, for example, or whatever disease. Or autoimmune is really common as well. If you have an autoimmune, Hashimoto's, all that sort of thing, there's so many different types of autoimmune diseases. These are things that our research is showing is linked to trauma. I'm like, this is not me saying this is like the big research heads. Okay, so trauma leads to physical and mental health issues. Ancestral trauma can also manifest in patterns of behavior and thought that have been passed through the family line. So, like, you often hear, I'm like, I'm not here, I don't want to trigger anybody, but I'm not here, like, if you have a father or a mother who's an alcoholic, does that mean that I'm going to be an alcoholic, right? Gabriel Maté talks a lot about this with addiction in particular. But sometimes it's not necessarily like, yeah, like it's a gene. It's more of the behaviors, kind of nature versus nurture. It's what you learn. It's what you learn how to cope when you have so much, history and so much, I'll say the word trauma. When you have this much happening, alcoholism is or addiction is a way that we cope with whatever we're trying to deal with, right? So like, yeah, again, yeah, exactly, like a predisposition for things, absolutely. Like, like, if I grew up in a house that isn't, like, my parents aren't alcoholics, my parents actually never drank alcohol, I never saw them drink alcohol, so I'm not like, I may not go towards the alcoholism, but let's say my parents smoke. So it's things that you see, right? So if we just focus on the sensations, like, what do you see, what do you hear, what do you smell, what do those textures, that's what our nervous system knows, right? So that's where it's like, you're going to go what feels most comfortable. So if we go back to neuroception is like, neuroception is a concept of, am I safe or am I in danger? So if I see my parents smoking all the time, I'm more likely to smoke because they're safe people to me. So if they're doing it, then I'm going to, like, maybe that's going to help me feel safe as well in my body, not necessarily if I don't know the work. Does that make sense? Right? So that's where we can follow in our parents' footsteps. Or you can be like some other people, they're like, oh my God, I hate the way my parents behave when they drink alcohol or smoke, so I'm going to do the exact opposite because I don't want to be associated with that whatsoever. So it can work the opposite as well. So depending, everybody, well, I mean, this is it. There's lots of layers to this because it can be based on, like, attachment theory and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle here, but it's just, what I want to get into are, what are the signs of ancestral trauma? So to see, like, do you have any of these signs that show up for you, and what are some benefits to helping you heal your ancestral trauma? Okay, so that's really what I want to get over. But does anybody have questions about that? But at the end of the day, healing ancestral trauma involves acknowledging. Awareness brings understanding, and understanding brings choice. There's my little mantra. I'm going to say it, right? So it's all about acknowledging and addressing the trauma that has been passed down through the generations, as well as taking steps to break the cycle. So many of the people in my communities, we're cycle breakers because we're stepping up and we're shifting the cycle. We're shifting how we connect with ourselves and connect in our bodies and listen to our bodies. So it's a little bit different than following the conventional ways on how to heal pain, particularly. Okay, like this. And so healing ancestral trauma obviously can be very a very emotional, difficult process. So that's why co-regulation is like number one. Is you got to find your peeps, you got to find your tribe, you got to find the community in which you're going to be able to do this, because healing, step one, your ancestral trauma, you can't do it alone, my friend. It really requires community. So again, if I focus on the indigenous leadership that I've seen, it's all about community. That's the indigenous really come together when they're trying to heal somebody. So they bring them in and all that kind of stuff. They have the different rituals and whatnot. So Yeah, so it's an emotional process. It's important, but it is an important step in creating a healthier future for yourself and for your loved ones. So if you do have children, passing it on. So like I see myself as a cycle breaker. So I'm breaking. It's funny because I'm reading my dad's book, Begin Again, and there's at the very beginning, he actually explains part of the story on how he got down, became a biological medicine doctor. And there's parts of the story I did not know. I knew some of it. I knew it had to do with my mom, but some of it I didn't know, or I did know, but I wasn't really like connecting those dots. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense now. But it's funny because like these are my parents, and now I have a little bit more understanding, but I didn't understand. If I knew then what I know now, it would be a little bit different, right? But it's just, it was just like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. And now I understand why I am what I am, because in the story, part of the story is my mom had severe, severe postpartum depression after she had with me and my brother. And so and she was really sick. My mom's been sick pretty much my whole life and before. So I'm like, okay, there's why my body's got some stuff going on, because got passed on to me, right? And so that's something that I'm trying to clear up and moving forward from there. So anyway, so what are some signs of ancestral trauma? So I'm going to go through 10 signs of ancestral trauma. So the first one is physical health issues. So if you are someone that has chronic pain, autoimmune disorders, or conditions that don't seem to have a clear cause or sign, that could be ancestral trauma. Okay, that you're like, I can't understand, like, where did this ailment come from? This physical ailment could be like your high blood pressure. I'm going to say cardiovascular disease is very much linked. Like my dad again talks about it in the book. It's the number one, I think, in North America. I think it's number one killer. Is that right? Yeah, cardiovascular disease. And in Canada, it's number two. And it's like your number two, and our, whatever your number two is our number one, which is, I think it's cancer. I don't know if it's cancer. Is it cancer? Yeah, something, I think. Anyway, my dad talks about, he was into the cardiovascular part, but he actually talks about how there's a big link with that. There's a book that you might be interested in reading. It's called Survival of the Survival of the Sickest. And it basically explains how all of us that are listening to this, that are alive today, we have evolved from the sickest people. So if you think about, like, one example of the story was the Africans that were on the boats to come over to North America to become slaves. The ones that survived on basically no food and salt water. So their history, if you look at, like, and what in the, I guess, like, in terms of the American population, what population has the highest rate of high blood pressure? And it's African Americans, because of the ancestry. So that the book explains that a little bit more, and they talk about diabetes and all that kind of stuff, but it's super fascinating. So if you want to learn more about that, that could probably go along with this as well. Number two, mental health issues. So ancestral trauma may manifest as a mental health issues such as PTSD, depression, anxiety. Those are more on the rise, more and more. But if that's something like, this came out of nowhere, like, why am I struggling so much with it? What you're seeing now is like the millennials, many, many, many more are, like, it was like my dad had the stat of how many people have actually used an antidepressant by the age of 14, and it was it was over 50%. Over 50% of people have used an antidepressant by 14 years old. Like, what? Wow, that really shocked me. But anyway, so it's, I remember when I worked in the gym, the stat was like one in 4 people that you meet are on an antidepressant of some sort. So it's very common. But people are still not getting to the source. They're just like, here, take this pill. It's going to make you feel a little bit better and whatever. And, like, we're not really getting to the source. And so ancestral trauma could be one of those sources. Number 3 is a negative pattern of behavior or thought. So if you have low self-worth, if you have difficulty trusting others, if you have unhealthy coping mechanisms that can be passed down, and it does get worse from generation to, yeah, exactly. They basically get passed down. That could be ancestral trauma as well. Okay. Number 4, a sense of disconnecting and not feeling like you belong. So Yeah, I'm hearing it a lot more with my son is now in high school, like here in Canada. He's in grade 7, so it's like middle school for the US, but for us, because it's a French school, the 7 to 12 is all grouped together. So I'm hearing these students, just it's all about like fitting in, right? And a lot of times, like a lot at that age, he's really at that age that, like he's like, Mom, I need to change how I dress, because he wears colors, and most of the kids in high school only wear black, white, or gray. And he's like, I feel like I stick out like a sore thumb because I wear color. So, he has that difficulty, he's having that feeling of disconnection because he's not with his people, and he still wants to, lean into his identity. And because he knows with me and my my work is that I wear color, to help, it's part of my healing journey because I'm working on the chakras and whatnot. So it's having a conversation with him, really. But anyway, number 4 is like, having that sense of disconnection that, people are like, I just don't belong, even from your culture. Like if you have, a specific uh, culture heritage, like following certain ways, certain traditions, and you're not following that, you're like, I don't want to do that. So it's Thanksgiving coming up this weekend for us. And I ran into a friend of mine because there I was at Costco buying my groceries for Thanksgiving. And she's like, are you making a turkey? And I said, no. And she's like, what? That's tradition. And I'm like, no, I'm not making one because I don't feel like I have to. And plus I hate taking apart a chicken. It's just, I don't like it. It's not it's not something I enjoy doing. And I know part of my healing is that I need to focus on things that I do enjoy to do. So anyway, so she's like, and she was saying that her mom was telling her, she's like, you have to make a turkey. She's hosting, and her mom's like, um, you have to make a turkey. And she's like, no, I don't. But she's like, yeah, you do. This is how we've always done it. But she's like, we can do it differently, Mom. Like, not everybody likes turkey. And so it was just like this conversation we're having that, sometimes you don't have to always do, yeah, normalize. Exactly. People feel safer doing the regular thing, but it also stresses people out. Like cooking a turkey is not easy. It takes time. Well, it kind of is, but it's all that prep time. For me, I like to go hiking. So for me to like, okay, I gotta put the turkey in now, and then you have to plan all these other things, and then you're hosting people. Oh my God, stress city, right? So it's like sometimes you create new ones that fit your nervous system, right? So anyway, throw that in there. So we're having some, I don't even know what we're having yet, but yes, division of labor. Yes, exactly. But that's it. It's just a matter, and this always falls on the woman. Like, why does, or like whatever. My husband's like, let's do like the beer can chicken or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's not, I don't feel like, no. I'm like, let's do something easy. I got a chicken pot pie. I was like, I can do that. And I bought it from Costco. So all I have to do is put it in the oven. I'm like, that's easy, but I don't know if that's what we're going to have. Anyway, it's one of the options. Okay. Number 5, difficulty forming and maintaining close relationships. So are you somebody that, you have trust and attachment issues leading to difficulty in forming and maintaining close relationships? You tend to be on trauma island a lot, and you do it all yourself. You're that lone wolf. That was me. That was a big like red flag for me. I was like, but I've done this my whole life by myself, and I've done pretty well. Like, don't get me wrong, lone wolfing it, like there's pride in that. However, if you want to heal your ancestral trauma, it's something to recognize that, are you a lone wolf? Are you one of those people? Number 6, difficulty in managing your emotions. Ancestral trauma, like it leads to difficulty in managing your emotions. Like you just feel like you're a volcano, you're ready to erupt. You're having extreme or intense emotional reactions to different situations. Very moody. Like blame it, if you're a female, you blame it on I'm PMSing, or it's my hormones or whatever. Or, like you don't even know what your emotions are. You're just reacting all the time. You're yelling all the time, or you're whatever, crying all the time. You're just like, I don't know why I'm crying again. And whatever emotions that you're experiencing, they hit hard and they come fast. Number 7, difficulty in self-regulating. So this is a big one. Ancestral trauma may lead to it manifests to making it difficult for you to actually regulate yourself and know how to self-soothe. So that, again, this goes to like the addiction part, is that, well, how do my parents self-soothe? They drink. When like you watch a TV show and you watch, like, how do people on TV relax? Think about like your favorite TV show, right? They all drink alcohol. And the funny thing is, you can see the evolution in like, timing of whatever. It used to be like, get a glass of wine, and then it was like, grab a beer, and now it's more hard liquor. I'm like, who the heck drinks like that much of a I was like, I'm like, no, right? But that's what you see on TV, and they're not. It's not real. They're just drinking like apple juice or whatever. But it's you seeing that, and you seeing like people. If you're always watching these shows to relax, like you've had a really stressful day, you sit down, you turn on Netflix, and you're watching your show. And how are those people relaxing? To grab a drink, right? That's what they're doing, and that's what we're seeing. So if that's how you're, yeah, mine, same here. Mine was to watch movies too. And then, but that kind of perpetuates, because what you watch, like if you understand the neural hierarchy, what you look at matters, especially when it comes to trauma, So watching movies, so knowing, like, being cognizant, because a lot of times I watched movies to escape my reality. Like that was a big part of my life, and I watched the same movie over and over again. And now that I know why, because the brain likes predictability. So I had to know all the words, because it was safe. So I always went to what felt safe and what made me feel different than what I was feeling at the time. It escaped my reality, and I needed to feel that. So there are certain movies that offered that for me. So I kept going to that. But essentially, if you have a hard time regulating yourself, especially when you've had these, like, sympathetic hits or these, big events, and you can't calm down, you can't get yourself to relax, that's definitely a sign you have some ancestral trauma. Number 8, identity crisis. Ancestral trauma can lead to confusion or the lack of clarity around your sense of self. Who are you, and how do you show up in the world? That could also lead into, if you're a little bit older or whatever, your sense of purpose, understanding, like, what is your purpose in life? A lot of people are like, I'm here to help people. We all are. That's what humans do, right? Like, I don't think I can throw a rock without hitting somebody that says my purpose is to help somebody. Are they? When you're like, oh yeah, I got a little bit. You got a couple? I got one for each. Yeah. That's me. All right. So you're in the right place. We're all in the right place then, right? So this is to recognize that, like, if we want to continue to heal, we have to, again, what was the first step? Acknowledging and having awareness. Like, yes, this is me. She's speaking to me. Okay. Number 9 is a big one. Disassociating from your thoughts, your feelings. Your thoughts are a big one. When your mind's ruminating, what are you doing? I'm scrolling on social media or whatever, and giving yourself, recognizing, what do you do to disassociate? Do you smoke? Do you, smoke pot, or you smoke cigarettes, or, like, drink, whatever, eat? Do you, like, is about eating your food or whatever? I noticed that for me, that was a big one for my life, is I consume a lot of sugar when I was younger. Now I don't really eat sugar. So it's like, I'm looking through the house, because I'm like, I know I have an aversion to sugar almost now. So I'm like, what else can I consume? So I'll find, like, popcorn and I go eat it really, really fast when I'm feeling agitated, or when I'm feeling that stress come on. I'm like, it's like, I need to stuff my face, because I don't know how to find my voice. So I recognize that when I'm feeling that, a lot of it has to do with when I have an oral fixation. I got to put something in my mouth, right? And I need the constant chewing. So that's where I realized, you too? Hey, we're not alone. Yeah. It's good to know, right? It's good to know we're not alone. So this is where, chewing gum, and then, there's different things, like, it's an oral fixation. So I used to put straws when they were plastic. I used to put them and I used to chew on them or whatever. Now, if I chew on it, just paper. So just, it's not the same. It's not the same. Toothpicks, so I'd put things in my mouth, chewed on pens. Yes, I used to do that too. Absolutely. I used to put the pen in the back of I'd have my hair in a ponytail, and I'd have it there ready to put in my mouth, so I wouldn't eat. So it's like, there's all these things that we used to do to be like, oh yeah, how do I do that? Right. I know people who smoke, so they need same thing. They needed something, so they'd put, that's where the straws came from. One of my coaches used to do that. He'd always carry a straw. And then, anyway, whatever. So anyway, do you disassociate, right? At the end of the day, and, like, how do you choose to do that? So maybe it is through watching movies, or, yeah, do we? Yeah, right on. You're not alone. That's awesome. Yeah. So it just depends on, what's your way of disassociating from whatever you're experiencing, right? And number 10 is intrusive thoughts or flashbacks. So intrusive thoughts or flashbacks of a traumatic event can be a sign of ancestral trauma. So this is part of the healing too, is that if you're someone that doesn't dream, that could be part of your body, your brain protecting you. So you're like, I don't remember my dreams at all. That's your brain protecting you because it won't go there. You're not ready, your brain is not ready or equipped enough to have the tools that it needs to release that trauma or that memory. So but sometimes you'll get them in like little flashbacks, you know what I mean? Like, so for me, when I was started healing, it literally felt like literally 1 second movie clips. I'm trying to think of that movie that they literally show you like a little piece of a big story, and then your brain's trying to put the pieces together to see what actually happened. So for me, that's what happened, is that as I was healing, I was getting a little bit more, I was getting a few more clips, and then my cognitive brain, my prefrontal cortex was like starting to put the pieces. And I actually asked my parents, and like, does this place exist, because it keeps coming up? And my dad was like, I don't know, ask your mother. So it was funny. So anyway, so it's just something that so dreams and then like flashbacks can come up and go from there. So um you got 100%. I'm all 10. Everybody's all 10. We're like, all right, we're all, yay. I'm like, okay. So we recognize that we have ancestral trauma. Yes. Okay. So we have that. So what are the benefits to healing? So like I said before, it's, like, it's really about the big, like for me, it's about the bigger picture, and the benefits to healing this is that your health, your life, your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health are all going to improve, right? So you're going to be focusing on really building resilience within your nervous system. So, like what my dad teaches from a biological medicine perspective, the what he teaches, that there's 11 organ systems, and he's basically trying to create homeostasis between all 11 systems, right? So, which is fantastic, and that's what his brain protocol and what the book Begin Again is all about. And so for me, it's, yes, like trauma healing movement is kind of the same idea, as I'm trying to get all the systems in play, but I'm also working on like the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical. So I'm really focusing on those 4 bodies, but it's really about energy. It's energetic healing, it's physical healing, it's mental healing, it's biological, it's physiological, it's all the pieces, and trying to get those working together so that you can feel whatever it is that you want to feel, like energetic. Yeah. So whatever you're aiming for, like what do, it really goes along with your purpose at the end of the day, right? So our purpose, for me, is what drives us every day to wake up and to focus on that thing. So I know for me right now, in this time and space, my purpose right now is connection to me, and my purpose for you is curiosity. So the reason you connect with me is because you're curious about healing your body in different ways. So that's where people that are watching this are like, yeah, I am curious about, like, this is why I resonate with you. What I may not resonate with people who are not necessarily curious about learning different ways of healing yet. They're still following more allopathic or more conventional ways, and that's totally okay. They're not ready yet. No problem. So that's why, like, as much as I'm like, I know what I have to share can help everybody, but if you're not ready and your nervous system isn't ready, then I can't force it, right? I can't. It's like, somebody, I'm thinking of the movie The Whale. I don't know why, but it came up. It's just like, my husband and I watched that. Has anybody seen The Whale? Do you know what that movie is? Brendan Fraser won the Academy Award for it. Anyway, the guy, Brendan Fraser, he was a very, very, very big man, and it was all about, like, he was basically dying. So the movie's following him. He was basically congestive heart failure because of all his weight, but it was like all the trauma that he hadn't dealt with got him to this place. And so like his purpose, like in the movie, is really about his purpose or what he needs to do in his last week of life, basically. So it's really fascinating. And anyway, so I thought it was interesting. But just when we talk about, like, what's your purpose? Like, what is it that you want for you? And what do you want to offer to the world? What is that? And that it's really grounding yourself. And so there's that, it's really about energetic and finding all the pieces, because when the energy flows, you feel good, right? That's the idea. It's like we don't want these blockages. So, understanding that, people will focus on lymphatic blockage or a digestive blockage or a cardiovascular blockage or a nervous system blockage, but understand that trauma will literally impact all of them, will create a blockage in all of those systems. So what we want to do is, like, a lot of people are like, I need to, and sometimes we have to focus on one at a time. And everybody, that's why I can't say like, um, like for all of you that are on the call, I can't say all of you are going to start in the same place. We just got to find the door and the portal that works for you, that resonates with you, right? And so understanding that some people are going to start from a digestive place, some people are going to start, so they start with nutrition. Nutrition's like, yeah, nutrition's going to change my life. I'm going to, clearing up your gut health and away you go. And then some people are going to be like, no, I want to focus on hydration. Oh my God, if you're dehydrated, your brain can't function, you can't move your tissues, you can't move well, and that's what I'm going to focus on. Or I'm just going to start moving my body, I'm just going to start walking is amazing. And I'm just going to start doing meditations because I'm just going to calm my mind. Whatever, there's so many doors that you can choose. Everybody's going to find that one, but for you, it's really about, why are we going to heal the ancestral part, is because it's going to allow you to have that bigger picture and really understand your nervous system terrain, understand your whole body terrain. Does that make sense? Yes. Cool. All right. So how do we heal it? Step one, how do we heal it? First of all, is you show up on this call and you acknowledge that those 10 things affect you, right? So educate yourself about ancestral trauma. So understanding the concept and what, like, show up and listen. So, hey, check, done, you're here. So basically it's just understanding and understanding that, yes, it's impacting my life, and it's something that I need to acknowledge and not just brush under the carpet. We need to talk about it. Okay, so if you want to go beyond this, there's definitely, I would definitely suggest that you research your family history. I know there's like 23andMe or whatever, the DNA stuff and whatever. If you want to do that, that's really up to you. You can read some books or articles on the topic. There's lots and lots and lots of therapists and people talking about this now. It's funny, like I was on Instagram for like 2 minutes, and next thing you know, like 3 posts out of the 5 I saw were ancestral healing. I'm like, okay, my phone is listening to me. You know how that works, right? So yeah, and then like putting all the notes that I needed to for this talk to, Google's listening, they're listening, so they know I'm talking about ancestral trauma. So yeah. So number 2 is co-regulation. Seek out help and find your peeps, find therapy or other forms of support, however that looks for you. So, if there's a community, a church, whatever it is, that's something that you can, ground yourself to or set that foundation in place. It's like I said before, it's an emotional process and you want to find your people. So it's, helpful to find, there are therapists that focus on this, but there's, other mental health professionals that can support you in the process. Having, depending on what type of therapy that you want, if you want to go bottom up, you want to go top down, you want to go side door, that's really up to you, to try to figure out how to, how you want to process this, but, find your people. I can't emphasize that enough, because that's a big piece of the puzzle. You can't lone wolf this healing practice. Number 3 is practice self-care. So self-care, or I call for self-care, is grounding. Practice grounding. So finding activities that help you feel safe. And when I say safe, for me, with my purpose, it's connection. So your word may be a little bit different than mine, meaning, like when I say grounding, people think, because I come from the movement world, they think, bare feet in grass. It could be that. But it could be meditation for somebody. It could be drinking water for others. It could be going for a walk in nature. It could be swimming for, some people. It could be doing CrossFit for some people. What is the activity, or what is the thing that you can do that helps you feel physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually taken care of? That you're allowed to just be. You're not doing anything. You're just being. You're like, what is that thing? You're like, I really don't know. So this is why we try different things. Like yesterday, it was funny. My husband was a little jealous, I'm not gonna lie. I went to the spa, because I needed a day for me. I've had a pretty rough couple 3 weeks here, and my body's been feeling it, and so I needed a day to just whew. And I have to say it was amazing because I was able to do a cold plunge for about 3 minutes each time. So I got my I did actually 4 rounds. I went bonus. I did extra. But it was an amazing opportunity for me just to connect with me because I got to read my dad's book. So I was learning a little bit about that, but just exposing myself to the temperatures. So I did, like, you did hot, cold, rest, hot, cold, rest, hot, cold, rest is how I did it. But it was funny because every time I was in the cold plunge pool, I was just sitting there and I was calm. And people were like, "How are you so calm?" And I'm like, "You should see me 30 seconds ago." Because every time I get in the cold plunge, there's a choice word that I would choose. I was usually alone at that time, but it was a place where I got to just be. So yesterday was an entire day of me being me, and just, I didn't have to do anything. I was just got to show up and be. And it was amazing. And that's why my husband's, I think he's a little jealous because he's like, "When can we do that?" But I think he wants to do the connection part. But I was thinking about that. Like, would I have liked to do that with somebody? No, this was an experience more for me because it allowed me, I didn't have to worry about, like, do you want to get out now? Do you want to shift now? When I've been to, like, the spa before with my husband and some other people, and oftentimes it's more about what they want. I'm not listening to my own needs. So this is where I got to go for me, like, going out to eat. I used to do this a lot too. I used to go out and eat, just for me. I'd go to the restaurant and I'd sit down and I just sit and chill, or I'd go to the movies. And yeah, it was awesome. So it was just a matter of, but it's finding the space or the thing, the activity, if you're going to go for tea or whatever, and you're just going to be. So you want to practice more of that self-care, right? So go from there. Number 4 is connect with your ancestors. So finding ways to connect with your ancestors. Some of them may be passed away, but whether it be researching your family history or participating in cultural traditions, you can always help you feel that sense of connection and belonging. So it just depends on where you want to go with that. But it can be especially helpful if you have a sense of disconnection from your cultural and familiar roots. You don't really know them, or if you do, great. Asking questions. I remember when my grandmother was still alive, my mom used to ask my grandmother questions, and she'd record it so that we had a recording of of our history of her family, because we asked her before she had Alzheimer's, so that's what kind of preempted doing this activity. You may not be able to do that, but that's where my mom started doing the family tree. So she's meeting cousins and all that kind of stuff. So finding out all this, she's doing the work for me. So I'm like, great, I don't have to. So I get to carry the torch after she's done. But maybe your parents haven't done it yet, and that's okay. So then maybe you can start. So if that's something that you want to dive into, there's lots of, now with technology, there's lots of opportunities for you to access that. Number 5 is break the cycle of trauma. So once you've worked through, understanding that your ancestors are part of it, it's important to take steps to break the cycle within your own family. So that's where you show up and do the work, right? You might have to set healthy boundaries. That's a hard one. A lot of times, I try setting a boundary with my daughter. She's like, "I don't like this. Why are you setting boundaries? I don't like these boundaries." I'm like, "It's not for you, it's for me." But anyway, setting healthy boundaries is a good one. Seek out support for yourself. So finding your people, showing up, finding a therapist if that's what works for you. Finding safe people, really, at the end of the day, loved ones, and create a safe space and supportive environment for future generations. So, helping my kids and helping them understand, my kids are still a little bit younger. They're going to get to those teenage years. And I read this somewhere, or I heard this, that teenagers tend to not listen to parents. That's what I hear. And so they tend to listen to your friends' parents, their best friends' parents. So you want to make sure that your best friends' parents are, a good set of parents, and that they're going to guide your children and, offer the safe space and that they can go to, and yeah, exactly. Being an awesome aunt. Absolutely. Being that, you could be that person or offer that to someone else, but absolutely. That's super, super helpful. But we want to look at, the process of healing. Ancestral trauma can be difficult and emotional, but it's important to create our healthy selves and talking to our children about it, right? And helping, giving them the tools that are available to help them break the cycle as well, and then go from there, so that they can, they can continue to break that cycle, um, down and down and down. Um, so what are some healing techniques? You're probably all wondering. First one is meditation or mindfulness. So for those of you who are like, oh my God, no, I do not want to, I cannot sit down and meditate in mind, like, and you can go into mindfulness. So that's why, like, for me yesterday, like I meditate better now than I did 2 years ago, but going to the spa, I love it because it's all about the heat and the cold. I like that feeling because it brings me into the moment. It makes me mindful because I'm not thinking about the grocery list I had to do later that day. I'm not thinking about, that conversation I had with my husband, before, or whatever. I should have said this, or, replying to that email that I got yesterday or whatever. It's really about being mindful and present in the moment. So meditation and mindfulness is a great way to do that. That's why I love walking in nature as well, because I'm usually focused on that. So however you choose to do that. There are ancestral meditations. Exactly. Something that can help you slow down. Absolutely. And I recognize that if you're someone that struggles with slowing down, like I did, like I used to, that is a sign of trauma, right? That's your trauma response. So then when you notice, like, oh my God, I'm really having a hard time focusing here. I'm really having a hard time, say, hey, trauma, I see you. I see you. I see you. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. I got you. This is my trauma response. So recognize it, call it out for what it is. This is my trauma response. I'm not feeling safe right now. And that's why I can't slow down. So it's like, okay. So you find that, like fidget toys are huge. So like my daughter, when she's like that, so she came shopping with me. Oh my God. She would not stop talking. I was like, do you really talk this much? This like is fast. And I'm like, holy moly, she had a lot to say. Straight, like, I don't think she took a breath. I was just like, oh my God, you have a lot to say. She's like, yeah, this is how I am all the time. I'm like, really? I'm like, I never really noticed, but holy, she just had a lot. So I'm like, can we just take like a couple deep breaths just to, let's put a little pause on this, right? So she did. And then, but we did our own kind of breathing. So we do what's called horse breath. And anyway, we had fun with it and it was awesome. And then it calmed her down. It helped her shift, but it was helping her recognize that she was in a sympathetic state. That she's like, holy moly. And just recognizing how that feels in her body. And she's getting better and better at that, which is pretty awesome. So that tells me she's breaking that cycle. So number 2 is an ancestral. I think I said that. Awesome. Thank you, Priya. Ancestral meditations, there are lots out there. So you can like go on YouTube and whatnot, but this practice involves visualizing and connecting with your ancestors in a meditative state. So that's where like ayahuasca and all these different type of psychedelic experiences, a lot of people are looking at exploring that more. And honestly, it helps kind of get you there into that ancestral meditation, because when you go into the psychedelics, you're really reaching that spiritual, you're going to that higher power to be able to speak to the ancestors and whatnot. So that may be something I'm like, it's not that I'm condoning it or supporting it. It's just, if you're at this place, like, I really want to dive more into this ancestral healing, using a psychedelic or something, or doing like, going to a retreat, or like even a silent retreat and that type of thing, it can help you, get into that ancestral meditative place. Another one is affirmations. It's funny because I read the other day, affirmations don't work. And I'm like, if you think that, then it definitely won't. So that's where my thing is. It's like, I tell my kids this all the time. If that's your perception, 100%, it's not going to work. So I'm just throwing it out there. So affirmations, there's statements that are reprogramming your negative thought patterns. Like, it's not about necessarily manifesting. It's just reprogramming and sharing. Like yesterday, one of the affirmations that I was using as I was doing, my spa cycle was, what was I saying? I recognize my trauma and I'm freeing my body of it. I recognize this trauma and I'm freeing my body of this trauma. So I was like, something to that effect. That's not exactly what I said, but it was something to that. I was recognizing that I have trauma and now I'm ready to free it from my body. And that's all I kept saying over and over and over again when I could, and it felt good. So I'm like, it felt good. I felt lighter. I felt better after this time, so it was pretty cool. Affirmations, yeah, they do have to feel authentic. I think you're absolutely right. And not just, like that's a whole like fake it till you make it. You're absolutely right. You have to find what resonates with you, and when you slow down, those words will come to you, right? It's not like I'm just going to read what's on the page. Absolutely. So that's why it's a matter of finding like what resonates with you, right? So there are lots of ancestral healing affirmations that focus on breaking the cycle, releasing inherited fears, and embracing positive qualities, for sure. Number 4 is rituals and ceremonies. So again, we steal that a little bit from the indigenous. That's where I got this one from, was creating your own, rituals and ceremonies. Like with Thanksgiving, I'm creating my own. I'm not following what my ancestors did. Guaranteed. Like I'm French Canadian, like through and through, like meat pies, like the whole, there's lots of different things. I don't do that because it's a lot of work, and my nervous system is like, I'm tired. I don't want to do all this stuff. And I hate taking 3 hours to prepare a meal and people eat it in 5 minutes. That is I can't. I don't like it. So I'm not going to do that. But creating your own rituals and ceremonies, like, so for us, we always go on a hike. So for Thanksgiving, we always go on a hike as a family, spend time in nature. So you create your own, right? So you can light candles, offering food or items or reciting a prayer as a way to establish a connection and express your gratitude. However, it's really up to you. Energy healing, big one. Most people know energy healing more as like Reiki, but there are other healing modalities that can be used to clear those energetic blockages to promote the healing stuff. So it's like, yeah, shaking, absolutely. Shake, shrug, and sigh, absolutely. Well, whatever healing modality that you're comfortable with and are aware of. Like I did a bioenergy course, and like it's crazy because like somebody's on my table and they're face down, and I just put my hands over their back. I can feel their energy, and I can feel where the blockages is. It's crazy. Like when you really understand, like your hands are very powerful, your face is very powerful, and your feet, a lot of neurons there. There's lots of opportunity for you to block those. That's why I wear color, for instance. We can undo that. Sound is super powerful. Sound healing, like there's lots of different ways to look at healing energy. Number 6 is journaling. So if you're that person that does like to journal, reflect on your ancestral stories, experiences, or emotions, like something that you remember from your grandparents, or anybody, can bring awareness of a hidden pattern or emotion, right? So again, the more you explore that, and it might lead to a releasing and healing. Yay. Art and creative expression, yay. That's always like, I'm a big fan of art, and being allowing yourself to be creative, because that's a big piece of healing trauma, because if you're traumatized, that creativity just goes down the tubes, right? And then if your eyes are being overstimulated all the time with social media and just watching too much information, if you're overstimulated, that creativity goes down as well. So stepping away and creating something, music, or scrapbooks, or just whatever it is that tickles your fancy, is a great way for you to express and channel what you're processing, so that you can release those ancestral wounds or emotions. Cool. Number 8 would be a family tree analysis. So again, investigating a family history and relationships that can unveil the generational patterns and facilitating understanding and resolution from the underlying issues. Cool. Number 9, healing circles or support groups. So we kind of talked about that already. Find your people. And then number 10 is forgiveness. So we talked about that last week. It's all about practicing forgiveness. So you can do forgiveness rituals. And so if you want to learn more about the forgiveness, we did 6 steps to forgiveness. So I'll put a link over there to the next one for the last week's, or you can just go on the YouTube channel to search from that one. How do you say that? Hopopano? Hoapopano? Something like that. Is that forgiveness? Is that what that means? Yeah. Cool. Right on. So that's all I have for today about ancestral trauma and healing that. So hopefully that was helpful for you. So are there any questions, comments, concerns? If so, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can shoot them below and I'll answer them. But for the rest of you, I'll turn off the recording so that we can share in a safe space, and we'll see you next time. I'm not sure what a topic will be, but I'm sure it'll be just as exciting and intriguing as this one. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.